Thanks for tuning into this episode of Walden Wong Art, and today I'm going to be doing another art review and critique with some comic book art. This one's from Superman, and looks like Supergirl. For those of you who don't know who I am and you landed on this channel, it's like, who is this guy? Well, my name is Walden Wong. I'm a comic book artist for Marvel and DC Comics. You can check out some of my work on my website. It's waldenwongart.com, and over there on my website you can see like a lot of different things to look at. Photo gallery, images, art store, prints, and a lot of fun stuff that you can look at. Even some of these videos that you're watching now. You can also check out my Patreon. So if you're interested in a mentorship from a comic book artist, check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/WaldenWongArt. Over there on my Patreon, there's a lot of different tiers that you can subscribe to. Things where if you want me to do a video like this or review some of your artwork or look at some of your art and give you critiques on that, I can do that for you over there. So without further ado, let's take a look at today's artwork. Here is today's artwork. We have Superman and Supergirl, and this one is from one of my patrons. It looks like he's done some digital art. Everything's really clean. So let's take a look at the pencils first. So here's the pencils. Where the penciler is Diogenes Neves. Apologies if I'm spelling the name wrong. The title is for Supergirl, issue 22 and page 2. Okay, and let's take a look at some of the pencils first. Very clean, very sharp over here. And then we're gonna take a look at the inks, and then I'm going to be reviewing some of the inks and go about explaining what I would do differently and how I would improve on it. So let's turn on the inks. So here's the inks. Let's toggle between the inks and the pencils. Yeah, very clean. I see some areas that are done nicely. Some areas, like for example, like over here, the penciler, I'm going to zoom in a little. Penciler added some hatch lines that went into the black. He missed it completely over there. And then there's a thickness on the side of the metal plate. Like this is the side and this is the bottom. And all of that is just completely forgot to ink. Let's take a look at, because this was done in digital inks, I'm going to take a look at each panel one at a time. Okay, this panel is done pretty good. Very clean lines with the inks. We're going to zoom in, look at this. Very clean lines, very orderly, good line weight. Some of them, there's like something missing over here. I'm going to mark off areas that I think is kind of off. So I'm going to mark it in red. So let's take a look at the pencils. The pencil didn't draw everything in, so sometimes you being an inker, you would want to go in there and kind of complete some of the drawings. Let me convert this to color so we can have some indication of where I marked. So this area, I would actually finish that line over there, because sometimes the penciler will just miss lines, so we want to put that there. Just take a look at some of the other areas. So when we toggle between the pencils and the inks. Okay, some of these lines I would actually go in there and kind of mix some, like a different shading. Like if you look here, this shape goes around here. I'm just going to draw it in. This shape goes around here, but it doesn't really continue. The penciler actually had this part here partitioned this way and this going that way. So what I would have done is maybe just ink these lines. Okay, let me go here. I would ink these lines. Let me go back a few. I would ink those lines going this way, tapering it, and then these lines going the opposite direction. Okay, let me take a look at some of the lines. Some of the hair here, like you see, when I'm looking at the pencils, you see that this hair line here, it loops around in front of this part. But when I look at the inks, it is changed slightly. So to ink that part, what I would just go in here and kind of like go in here and just follow the lines. I try not to deviate too much from the pencils. I would try to keep it the same. Okay, some of these metal lines here, like I could tell that it looks kind of off. Like here, I would either erase this and just have it stop right there, or kind of like use a white line. White line as in, for example, I'm gonna grab white and kind of like separate that little bit there. Okay, for the metal part. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other areas. Okay, let's take a look at Supergirl. Let's take a look at the pencils and the inks. This one's pretty good. I would actually add, instead of one strip of line, even the penciler, he drew like a double line over here. So having one line is okay, but if you add this extra line right in here, just to show that there's a thickness to the hair, that will look good. This bump here kind of just looks off. It looks better if it's like a line gets here. Let's see how the pencil looks. Yeah, so the pencil, it was just a jagged pencil, but with inks, I wouldn't create a bump like that. I would actually have a line just continue on. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other areas. Okay, so we have the fangs, the claws. Yeah, these are digital inks, very, very clean, very, very sharp, which is very good. I'm going to take a look at some of the other areas. Okay, let's take a look at this. So here, okay, right away, this one looks a little bit off. The penciler drew these lines. These lines are meant to be like a gray tone, where it goes from a light area to a medium value to a darker value to a black area. And here, they're just like lines that aren't really creating that tone. So what I would do is I would go in here and I would ink these lines. I would press into it with your pen. So I'll start thin and I'll press thick. And I will try to close up these lines. Like I'll press in here and I'll go thick. Okay, press in here, go thick. And then close it. It's okay to go back and kind of sharpen them up. These lines doesn't have to be a blunt like that. And then after that, I would cross hatch. Now when you cross hatch, I would go thin like this. And then as I go into the black area, I'll press down on my pen and then I'll go thicker. This way you get like a nice consistent like a tone going on. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other areas here. But you know, it's very clean. I do like that it's digital line, but then there's still some thought process into the digital work. Okay, we'll see that there's a halo there. Okay, that's a separation. This should have been going all the way across. So if these black inks went all the way across, it will look a little bit better. Now, if you on purposely created a halo there, what I would do is actually create a halo around the same, like around with these fingers. So that just to separate the hand from the body more. Now, if you didn't want to do that, which the penciler didn't really call for that, he just drew it and then he didn't really draw all the way across. So in this case, I would just go in there and kind of fill all that in black just to complete that line. So when you're inking, it's not just tracing the lines, you really want to go in there and add more. Like sometimes the pencilers forget to draw stuff, you just go back in there and add more details to it. Okay, so the hair over here, let's take a look at the pencils. The pencil is just like a flat dead line. We do see the pencil trying to create some kind of line weight where it's like no line here and it's thicker and it's thin and it's thicker. Here, the line weights are kind of gone a little bit, so I would actually go in here and thicken up this line a little bit more. Like thicken up this line, okay? Just to give it more depth. I do like that you have like thick to thin to thick over here. Very angular. The line work is very angular. It's probably because the penciler is very angular. Okay, good job over here. How the shadow is thicker on the bottom. We'll take a look at this. Now you're inking this. Oh, this is pretty good. Yeah, this arch over here. There's a little bit of wobbly lines over here. I'm not sure if you're inking this with a Procreate or Photoshop or whatever program you're using. When I'm using Photoshop, when I'm inking lines, if you're inking slowly, like for example here, digital lines, if you go slowly, you're bound to have a wobbly line. So what I do is I like to control the smoothness. Say I'm on my brush setting, and on my smoothness, I'll increase that to a higher percentage. So when I draw that line, the computer calculates that line for you. So if you had 100%, you can draw that line and you get a nice smooth line. You see how smooth that line is? Now, if I had this at 0% and I'm drawing that line, there is a slight bit of wobbling. See that? That just naturally happens when you're drawing on a tablet. But if you increase that to 100% and you're doing the same motion at the same speed, it calculates that smoother line for you. But there is a trail. You see how, like my line there, it's just slowly trying to catch up because the computer is calculating that smooth line for you. Okay, so you can always toggle this to maybe like my nice setting is like maybe 10%. Okay, but you can toggle it to wherever is comfortable for you. Okay, this is a nice taper line, how it closes up. This is really done really well right over here, how it closes up. So when you're tapering lines always start thin, like what's happening here, and it goes thicker, and then it closes up into a nice point. So you're going from thin, and then you're pressing into it. Going from thin, and you're pressing into it. Now I noticed that the pixelation is kind of like pixelated. If you're inking, let's check out what resolution this is in. Image size. This right now is currently at 400. I'm just going to increase this to 600, and then we'll see what happens when it's at 600. When you're inking digitally and you're inking in a lower resolution, a lot of your work will become pixelated. So the higher the resolution that you can ink, the better. And then after you're done inking, you can always lower the resolution later, and it will maintain its line quality. Okay, I'm gonna skip this 600 resolution because it's kind of a large file. I actually saved the background. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to that same line. You see how that was pixelated when it was originally at 400? Now it's at 600. When I draw that line, it's a little bit cleaner, not as fuzzy as this. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at some of the other areas. Let's take a look at this face. Okay, very nicely done. Now the eyebrows, right away, immediately, I noticed that there's this line here, and then but when it's inked, it's just all these looks like grass. You should go in there and draw what was originally there. See the top of the eyebrow. This way, the colorist will be able to color it. Now, not only will I ink eyebrows a different way. I won't ink like that. I'll actually go on top. Here, let me rotate the canvas. I'll go on top and I'll just draw it over here. I'll break up the lines like this, and then I'll slowly build on top of the lines. And then I'll draw a few lines in here, and I'll fill in those lines like this, okay? And then as I get to the bottom of the eyebrow, you see these eyebrows here? Once I get to there, I'll start feathering outwards, okay? So some of these lines, okay? So that's how I would ink in some of the eyebrows. So over here is pretty good. Yeah, I do see that you don't have any crisscrossing, so that's a good sign of inking over there. Okay, some of these tech over here, it does need some line weight. Like everything here is kind of like, like when we look over here, it's thick. This line is thick over here, and then this line is thin. The front line should be a little bit thicker, and there should be some kind of line weight. Let's take a look at the pencils. Yeah, so yeah, this is the one that I mentioned earlier where you forgot to fill in all this area. Okay, some of these lines, okay, let's take a look here. This line just ends. Let's take a look at the pencils. The pencil did it that way. Doesn't mean that you just trace it that way or ink it that way. It's better to kind of complete that line for the penciler. Okay, yeah, some of these, okay, here's a plate. This plate is in front of this plate, or this plate's in front of that plate. I would go in there and thicken up one of these areas. Like this plate over here is in front of this plate, so this one needs to be a little bit thicker. Yeah, objects that are closer to the viewer needs to be thicker than objects in the back. Like on this cheekbone area here, I would actually go in here and thicken up this line much more, just to bring out some of these to the front. I'm gonna rotate this and ink this a little bit better. So I'm gonna go in here and kind of rotate and then ink that line just to give it some kind of a line weight. Now some of the inside, this stuff, instead of that line there, I know it's tech stuff is kind of boring sometimes. I would go in there and just kind of beef up some of those lines. So just imagine there's some shadows in between here and there. Same with over here. Instead of just like a line that's there, just kind of create some kind of underlying shadow in between some of the lines. Like for example, maybe like a line that comes out over here, and then a line like that, just a little bit thicker. This area looks pretty good, but over here it needs a little bit more. You see that wiggly line? Again, just ink that line a little bit faster. Okay, we have good job over here. This is this nice thick line. This looks pretty good. Good job here. And over here, this one needs to be a little bit thicker. Okay, we're gonna take a look at some of the other sides. This is the, yeah, just like Superman images transforming and stuff. Okay, good. Let's take a look at the bottom. Okay, these cross hatch lines are done nicely. Again, it looks nicely computer, but then like computer hatching. But again, distance is important. Okay, this is just like random pencils, like some of this area. You see how they're really close to each other. All of a sudden they're further apart. Try to space your lines evenly. Okay, try to space them evenly. So I would go in here and let me rotate this and then adjust these lines. Space them evenly. Just make sure they're all spaced like almost roughly the same distance apart. So you see how the distance between this is like so close, and all of a sudden the distance between this is so far, and then it's just fluctuates. It distracts from the artwork. You want to keep it nicely spaced and nicely distanced. Okay, good job on these taper lines. These are done really nice. Nice job over here. All of this. This is perfect taper lines. Okay, nice sharp tip, goes thicker, and then as it goes into the black, goes into a tip, and then it's a nice pattern over there. That's nicely done. This is also nice. All of these actually are nicely done. Here, I wouldn't draw this line over here. I would actually just go and taper and then stop. Taper this line, stop, taper that line. And then once I get up to here, and then I'll close it. I wouldn't draw that line, okay? Let me demonstrate how I would approach working on this part. So let's take this leg over here. I'm gonna take this leg, okay? So this leg and then this shadow here. For example, I had that leg and I moved it over here. Let's see, this leg, where's that leg? Okay, let's go back. Let's go back a few steps. Okay, I'm just gonna ink directly on top of this. Okay, if I had this leg and I'm tapering these lines, let me rotate it into the right angle. This is the right angle for my hand. I'll just ink this line like this, ink this line like that, like this, and then I'll close them up right over here. And as I go back to the other side, I'll just finish like that. I will not draw that line over there. Okay, these lines are good. These lines are good. Good. This is good. This is good. Okay, this is much better. Good. Good. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other areas. Okay, let me rotate it back into place. Okay, yeah, very clean. I noticed that when you're inking digitally, because you can remove the pencils at just a click, is very clean. Let's take a look at some of this. Okay, let's say, let me move this guy back into place. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me lock this layer. Okay, let's take a look at the rest of the artwork. So we have, yeah, so here, when we look at the background, it's inked exactly like it's penciled. Yeah, there's no line weights to the artwork. It's just inked exactly like it's penciled. I would go in there and create some line thickness. Okay, so even objects in the background, which may not be important to the artwork because the characters are more important, I would still go back in there and kind of beef up some of this area. So for example, this area, I would make this a little bit thicker and thinner here, thicker over here and thinner here, just to give it more depth. Like this box over here, I would make this a little bit thicker here. Again, we're gonna look at some of the text stuff because the figure inking is pretty good. Like some of the areas around here, the line thickness, that's pretty good. The line weights are here, pretty good. When it comes to the line weights of the people that you're inking, it's pretty good. Line weight, don't just ink the outside, but also continue inwards. But when you're doing some of the text stuff, it lacks some of the line weight quality. I would go in there and try to go in and thicken up some of those lines too. I know it's boring sometimes for me when I'm inking text stuff or backgrounds. That's one of the most relaxing therapeutic things that I can do. Like for example, you see where Superman is standing on this tower? That line here is the same thickness as this bridge here. This tower where he's standing on the roof or whatever is really close. So I would actually go in here and make this line really thicker, just to bring this forward closer to the viewer. So with that line thicker, it gives more depth to the artwork. It's closer to the front when it's thicker. Okay, some of these the freeway over here, you see that freeway line? This line here is the same thickness as that line. Okay, what I would do is I would go in here and make this line slightly thicker, but not as thick as this line over here. When you're inking artwork and you have distance in your art, where there's foreground, middle ground, and backgrounds, objects in front is always going to be thicker objects in the middle is always going to be like a middle thickness, and then further back is going to be thinner. So remember all those things when you're inking, okay? Like for example, here you see the thickness of this. This part is nice and thick, and this is thinner, so it shows depth. But when it gets to here, you have this object that's thinner. It shouldn't be thin. This part should be thicker because this building here is in front of this bridge. This bridge can't be thicker than this one. So nice thickness here, but as you get to here, it's got a little bit thinner. So I would make this line a little bit thicker. Okay. Some of these detailing over here, again, objects, make this thicker and then go thinner over here. Okay. So right again here, thicker, thinner here, thicker, and then here. Give more depth to some of the background objects. Okay. Nice arch. Nice arch. A little bit of squiggly line. So I don't know. Did you do that freehand? If you did that freehand, that's especially if you're doing it digitally, you did it freehand. That's actually pretty impressive because it's a pretty nice arc. Usually, one of the tricks if I'm inking digitally and then I'm trying to create an arc. Actually, you know, I'm going to demonstrate in this video. So this is a nice lesson for those of you who want to draw nice arcs and nice ovals digitally, and then without having these wobbly lines over here. So what I'll do is I'll take my, I'm going to go here and take my elliptical tool, and then an elliptical tool, I'll just draw like an oval. Okay, if you have your finger on the shift key, it keeps it perfectly round when you're doing this. If you don't have your finger on the shift key, you can create ovals like this or wherever you want. Now, if you created an oval and you want to move it around, put your finger on the space bar. Put your finger on the space bar right over here. We're gonna find that shape. Okay, right over here, and then I'll let go. Okay, once I let go, what I want to do is I want to transform this, and I make this edge follow the shape of the pencils. So I'll right click it and I'll click transform selection. Once I have transform selection, you can rotate this to wherever you want, like leaving your finger at the shift key like that. Okay, now once I have that, you can adjust the different angle of your oval. So in this case, I'm going to go with my mouse, right click, and then I'm going to click the button that says warp. Once it's warped, you can move this to wherever you want that arc to be. So I'm going to move it into the right place. Like for example, right over here, I'm just going to move it around. Okay, you can also use the distort tool. You can use, but I like using the warp tool so I can control exactly where the lines are going to be. So I'm going to move it in slightly right over there. Move this here. You can take these anchor points and kind of move it around. There we go. So we have that nicely. I'll move this around. There we go. You see how that follows that arc? Once you have that done, then I'll press enter. Like, I don't worry about any of this outside lines here. I'll just focus on this. After I have that arc, then I'll right click it right over here and I'll click stroke. With the stroke, you can create the thickness of your line. So right here, let's say I have a 10. Just to say I'm going to type in 10. You can choose the line to be on the inside of this selection tool, on the center, or on the outside. Usually I'll just have it outside. It doesn't really make a difference if you want it to be inside, center, or outside. Once you click OK, then you see that line over there. Okay, that line follows that one. Now, if the line isn't thick enough, just go Control-Z, go backwards, and then right click again, and then go stroke, and it will make that line a little bit thicker. So let's just do 20 this time, see how it looks. Right there, you see that line? Okay, now once I have that line done, actually before I do that, I want to create a new layer. Control-Shift-N, new layer. Okay, there we go. And then I'll draw that line on top. So again, with your mouse, right click, click stroke, and then pick whatever color. You can choose your color by clicking here and clicking black or any color, but if you're inking, just black. But I'm going to keep it at red so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, click red, and then now we have that stroke. Okay, you see that? Okay, after that stroke, I want to get rid of this line. So make sure you're on this layer. You take the erase tool, just erase that part, and then just, usually I'll just zoom out so I can erase like quicker over here. And I'll zoom in, and then I'll erase this part. Now, you'll have that arch, a nice perfect arch without any of the wobbly line. Take a look at that, okay? And then it'll be nice and perfect. See that? Now, if you want to take that image and then you want to duplicate that, for example, I'm just going to use like my magic wand and then I'll click the red part of this. Okay, so there's my layer. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just take that, and then if I was doing the outside line, I would just duplicate my layer right over here, and I'll click Control Transform, just drag that out, okay? Drag it into the right place. So it'll be the same arc like that. Now, if you wanted to adjust it a little bit, again, same thing, right click, go to the warp tool, and then right here you can bend that wire around. And it will just keep it nice and smooth. So you can move it to wherever you want. So I'm going to move this into the right place. So right over there, click enter, and then click done, Control D. See that? So I'm going to remove the pencils and the ink so you can see what I've done with the arc. It's a little bit wobbly because I was doing it pretty quickly, but you guys get the idea. You can get it like nice and clean over there. Okay, now we're gonna take a look at some of the other inking areas. Yeah, so some of the, hey, let's take a look at some of the hair. Good job on the hair. Okay, I would actually go a little bit thicker on the holding line over here, just a little bit thicker. Anytime I'm making the outsides of the character or outside of each object, I will actually go in and beef up some of the other areas. Okay, and then let's take a look at this. So some of the arms, you see this is just one flat line. Let's take a look at the pencils. Here's a pencil. Pencil also made one flat line. Some pencilers, they don't really focus that much on the depth and the inking. That's the inker's job. So right in here, I would actually beef up some of these lines over here, just to give it more dynamic to the artwork. Inking isn't just inking lines, it's to create line weights to it. Let's take a look at the pencils. Yeah, so some of the things that you've created, my patron, he did like beef up this line, which is pretty good. The cape, so that looks pretty good. Nice. These are really done nicely. These lines is actually very impressive over here. These taper lines are really done very well too. Okay, what is this line over here? Okay, that's because the penciler drew that line. Okay, so the penciler made a mistake over here. He wanted this to be there and he just didn't erase that line. And then you also inked that line. I know that it may look like a fold, but the fold doesn't fold that way. It maybe can, but that looks kind of off. So in this case, the penciler just forgot to erase that bit. So I would actually go in there and kind of erase that bit over there. Okay, same depth, just a little bit thicker on this side, thicker on this side, and thicker on that side. So there you have it. That's my review for this art review and critique for one of my patrons. Nice job. Majority of this digital ink is very, very good. The areas that I picked for you to do better is to make you as a better artist. So those of you who are interested in being one of my mentees or to have me mentor some of your work and do art review and critique, check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/WongWongArt. And once you're there, there's different tiers depending on what you want. I can look at your work, I can offer you assignments where you work on it and I can critique it, and I can make videos like this. And then we can talk to each other on messaging, and then if you have any questions, I can always answer that. And check my website, is WongWongArt.com, and over there you can find out more about my work with Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Image Comics, all the different publishers that I've done in the past. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, hit that notification bell so anytime I upload a video, you'll be one of the first to see it. And any questions and comment down below. Take care and keep on drawing and keep on inking. Bye-bye.